Welcome to the ET Ultimate Edition tutorial, episode 4 out of 5. In episodes 1 through 3, we entirely assembled, painted, weathered, and installed inexpensive LEDs into the lower half of this ship. In this episode, we tackle the antenna tower and antenna array, but I spend most of the time demonstrating how to properly use a lumiluster to chrome the dome. I can't wait to get started. Let's put this antenna together. I deepened up the holes just a little bit in these two parts. They were a little bit shallow, just to make it easier to adhere straight. Let's deepen those. So I've got some CA glue, I've got my spray kicker, and I'm going to go ahead and take a chip brush, a little cheap painter's brush. I'm going to put some super glue on the end of that. I'm going to spray kick the bottom of this and adhere that. Make sure it goes on evenly. Again, put some super glue onto that pylon. And spray away from your super glue. And I'm going to give that just a tiny bit of a spray kick. And lay it on. Make sure it's nice and straight up and down. That looks perfect. And then the last piece on top. Same procedure. A little bit of CA. Spray kicker on the piece. And there we go. Whoops. There we go. And put that in line with the two prongs. Straight up and down. And maybe just one last spray kick on those joints. And here is your antenna. Now that's not quite finished yet. There's 4 struts, 2 on each side. Okay, I have my 4 little pieces there. I'm going to spray kick the areas I'm applying these parts to. And with tweezers, I'm going to dip these guys into some CA and just put them in position. Let's weather the antenna and the antenna tower. To do this, we've got a loose rust color. I'm using my brown grime and possibly a little green grime. This is mostly an organic application. I'll do a little bit of airbrushing on this, but not much. So I can see from reference shots that there's rust staining on this, a lot on these bells here. I'm going to dip into my grime here. Give just a little bit of staining. It's amazing how much you can do with just a brush and a paper towel. You don't always need an airbrush to do all this. Okay, I'm going to go back to my rust. And it's really heavy on the tops. And really, that's what it looks like they did. It looks like they literally just stippled on the rust color. A little bit up here. introduce a little bit of streaking here. I want a little bit of water stain action happening with this, so I'm going to put on that loose paint real quick. Just dry that off, so now we end up with kind of like this really cool water staining feature. Same deal with the tower. I'm applying some of this loose rust color. Just kind of brushing it on here. If I'm getting a little too heavy, I can move it around. Maybe a little bit here on the top. Grab this engine grime and just darken this up, make this look a little bit older. Okay, there's the antenna and the tower array, mostly done. I might do a tiny bit of definition with an airbrush, but probably not. I mean, this is looking really amazing. Way back in episode 1, I showed you a few steps for preparing the dome for paint. Here, we're going to take it the rest of the way and chrome it using a Lumiluster. I simultaneously chrome a dome with All-Clad so you can see the difference. Let's jump in. We are going with a Lumiluster and All-Clad. I'm going to be doing a sample showing a demonstration of both next to each other. So what we need to do is get this dome shiny, 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 shiny black. For today's tutorial, we're using this HVLP gun. This is a touch-up gun. These are $14 at Harbor Freight. I picked that one up yesterday. I have a water trap. These are about $5, I think, at Harbor Freight also. So you want to make sure you use a fresh water trap each time you do paint. This is another airbrush I got. This is a more of a higher volume HVLP gun. Amazing to use. I think today we're sticking with the smaller touch-up gun. For base coating, you can base coat in the high gloss jet black. This is a 2K paint. This is a 3-to-1 mix ratio. These are available on Amazon. We can also use rattle can. I'll be showing you that technique also. And then for doing your 2K top coat, clear coat, making your parts glossy, Amazon.com. There's a couple different brands you can use, but I really like this one. Acme Finish. This is FC720. And there's a medium hardener I'm using, FH612. So there you go. And then for doing our chroming, a Lumiluster, my favorite. Alright, let me get to work and show you these techniques. We're outside. It's a nice balmy 85 degrees today. Perfect day for painting. Now I can start coating this with a 2K automotive paint, but you don't need to, honestly. You can use a black, flat black, rattle can black, and coat this guy very carefully with no drips. So you can start it here as your substrate, but you've got to finish it with 2K automotive. It's not going to work unless you use that 2K automotive out of an HVLP gun. Here is where you want to get with this. Very shiny black, mirror-like. Here is the final result of that Aluma-Luster over the gloss black. That is insanity. I knew it would turn out nice. I mean, but this... So we're going to take this a little bit further, and we're going to put some gradations, some dull areas on these domes. And when you get yours, this is an older version of the dome I'm using. It'll have a deeper groove, but if you can see really close, well, you can't really see it, can you? But there is a groove that runs along this entire rim. So what I'm going to do is mask that groove below and above. This is flexible vinyl masking tape. I've got that ring, that upper ring masked off, ready to go. We're going to dull this to get that dull gradient going on. So what I do have though is matte clear in a rattle can. I'm going to decant some of this. Let's move this out of the way. I'm just going to decant some of that into a little cap and load airbrush. Let's cap this off, and I'm just going to hit this ring to dull it down. Okay, there's the second pass. It's going to be hard to see, but that is significantly duller than the original shine. And I think I'll stop there, give this about 10 minutes to dry up, and unmask it. This vinyl masking tape is coming off without any problems at all. I'm just pulling very gently on it. Okay, there it is. So there is that gradient. I know it's kind of hard to see because everything is still so reflective, but there is a nice gradient there on that ring. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to start introducing some shading matte panels on this ring. Alright, here is a paper template that I cut out that approximates the shapes of these squarish rectangular panels. I'm going to start with dulling down this center panel. Just going to hold this in position. Real light though. These aren't nearly as dull as that top ring. So I've got my air pressure down really low. And I'm just going to kiss it barely. Yeah, a little more I think. Okay, there, I like that. So that's definitely duller. There's a little separation there. It's going to be really hard to see. Okay, and then I think I'll do two outer over here. So I'm going to dull this guy. Real light. And this outer one, even lighter. Just barely. Alright. And then randomly, so I don't want to do two outers and then another two outers next on the next quadrant, so I'm going to do the center on this. Okay, so we got two dull, dull, shiny, dull, shiny, dull, and then I'll do two dull. Okay, that dull, And then this one. Okay, looking good. So I'm just going to keep going around this dome and getting these separations happening. Just for a little variation, I'm going a heavier matte coat on some of the panels and real light on some of the other ones. I'm going to go back over this one, make it a little more dull. Then I'm going to do this one real light. Looking great. This one, I'll go real heavy. And I think for just a tiny bit of variety, I might make one or two of these bottom panels a little bit duller. Just want to see if I can get just a little bit of separation here. Just barely. Yeah, so you can barely see that. It's just a little bit duller than the other ones. Just for kicks. I'll do this guy over here, same way. I've got my air pressure turned extremely low. I barely have any paint coming out. I mean the matte clear coat. It's barely coming out. Just a tiny bit. Just a tiny little touch there. Okay, I think we can see now the reflective gradient difference a little bit better, a little more dramatic on that ring. We've got some of these rectangular, squarish panels individualized. I've got a couple of the duller panels here, just to give it some variety. But yeah, very, very happy with how that is so far. Oh, by the way, this is the Alumoluster dome. This is the all-clad dome. One other note, if you're going to be installing lights into those tiny windows, you can install LEDs behind there. What I would do, and I've done this before in other builds, is use fiber optic and just run little holes through these guys where you want to light them, have a center light, and just run fiber optic into those holes. I would do it. I'm just on a time crunch. I've got a big NDA project. But if you've got the time, go ahead and run those fiber optics. Let me show you what I've done to mount the tower to the dome. Is I've countersunk a little hole in here, made a screw hole. I'm going to be using this hardware to mount the tower to the dome from the inside using a washer and screw. So that will very easily mount there. There's already a pilot hole that we saw here earlier. There's a pilot hole here. Just make sure that you bury that a tiny bit. I also made a little bit of an indent on the bottom of the antenna tower, just so that everything fits nice and flush. So I decided to install lights in this tower. So I made a second hole as a pass-through for wiring, and I'll be gluing an LED to each lobe on the ends of those lobes. And if you were going to light these little tiny windows, just very simply stick an LED inside there. Here's the dome. I attached that antenna and the tower with a nut and washer. I've got my lights tidied up, on-off switch. Look at this guy. Alright, so hey, this on-off, I didn't mention this earlier, but these little on-off switches also are available on Amazon. Dirt cheap. It costs maybe 10 cents. And it's pre-wired. You don't have to do anything. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even solder anything in this. I just twisted the wires and put some shrink tube on it, and I'm done. But yeah, we got on-off switches on this dome. We have them in the engine band. And let's put this all together and see what it looks like. Let's actually turn this light on. Yeah, really happy with how that turned out. This is the end of episode 4 of this tutorial series. I hope you're enjoying Project ET Starship, the Ultimate Edition. Click on the bell icon to see when the next content is published. My channel contains over 15 years of detailed tutorials, which I think you'll find useful. Click Part 5 to continue this build-up.